first match. I have to go back and re-record it because, well, I started live streaming on the main channel rather than this. So, on the play, we have Bump in the Nights, a couple Boros Charms and a Searing Blaze, 3 lands, which is pretty reasonable. With this deck, pretty much always get your Blood Crypt first. Go ahead and play out things. We'll play their land and pass. We get a little cute here because we're not quite sure what we're dealing with yet. Wasn't until this point that I knew I was up against Living End, and I wanted to do this to set up our domain lands. Turned out to not be necessary this game, but I'm going to go ahead and Boros Charm during their upkeep so they can't force a negation. This Boros Charm, it does nothing, passes. We get our full domain on. Opponent gets ready to set up their Living End. They just dump everything in the graveyard here. Subtlety, we take the opportunity to pop it with a Searing Blaze. Which they could have forced a negation if they had wanted to there, but at some point we're going to be exposed to force of negation, so there goes Living In, they do their thing, they get a bunch of crap back, we untap and draw Bolt and kill them. I did consider momentarily playing it during their upkeep, but then I realized I'd be playing into this. And obviously not force of negation during their turn, but still, just better to pop them while we can. Even if they have one force of negation, we have the second burn spell for finishing things up. Alright, take a look at the sideboarding before we get rolling here. I boarded out the Searing Blazes, which are just terrible against Living In, and boarded out the Iridescent Vine Lashers. I don't know. I think on the draw that there's not a ton of difference between Goblin Guide and this in terms of potential damage before Living End comes down. So I think I just took the non-situational 1-drop. You know, Vine Lasher really has to come down turn 1 to be a pretty decent. Then we brought in the Thought Seizes and the Rakdos Charms. I mean, Thought Seizes to try to take their combo, Rakdos Charm to try to blow them out. Eidolon, theoretically, is reasonable against them, but a little bit worse, especially on the draw. So, this hand is okay. I mean, one more land than we ideally want. We only have 9 points of burn. We do have a point of interaction, so plays our land and passes. We play our land, or we drew a Swift Spear and hit them for 1. They pitch a Commandeer, which could have been devastating potentially for us. They do their thing, pass. We draw Tribal Flames, which kind of incentivizes us to deal with our domain package here. So one thing I will note with the sequencing here, I was trying to avoid exposing either Lightning Bolt or Boltwave to another Commandeer. Thoughtseize obviously doesn't do a ton to us, but does keep us from disrupting them potentially. And Boltwave can't target our Swift Spear here, and we're about trying to push damage right now. And our opponent plays a Force of Negation. We Thoughtseize, and we see a hand of 4 third drops. Endurance is a pain any which way. I mean, we could take it, but then we're just putting a card in the graveyard for their inevitable Living Ends. Could take one of the two Cascaders, but then they're left with the other one. Theoretically, in that situation, you probably take Shardless because it's a little bit less board position. But I chose instead to take Teferi, mainly because I don't want us being locked into playing Sorcery Speed. In the end, I don't think any of these choices really mattered. It comes down to whether our opponent, gets some momentum going with some things. I honestly don't know why they kept that hand. I mean, yes, they had the Cascaders, but they had no Cyclers to speak of. And they were down a third land, so the hand was debatable. We get that. Tribal Flames, and smack them with Swizzle Spear and win. So, Boros Charm would have done it there, and Tribal Flames, so it is nice to have that little bit of reach, even if our mana base is a little bit awkward to sequence it for correctly. But pick up the win here against Living End. Match number 2. First match will have to be re-recorded because I apparently hit live stream instead of... Yeah. Can't really keep the one-lander. Well, we'll try this one. Let's go ahead and let our opponent know what's up. Basic swamp into... Alrighty then, so we lose. Got it. Somebody's actually playing this trash. Mm-hmm. I don't even know where to begin this style matchup because they just have so much life gain. Go 2, they're basically a virtual 5. Sure. That gain them life too. And and then we just die. Fantastic. Guess we bring in Thoughtseize. And Leyline Binding is just maybe a little cute, but maybe something we have to bring in. Serum Blaze, I mean... the battlefield does the damage creature in 3 damage deck. Recruit player. And Planeswalker controller. Controller controls. Okay. heard that makes more sense. I'd like to play first. Sand is terrible. Sand is fine. Back one of our fetches. Yay. Yeah. Pass. Come for one, that's fine. Into a land. Not just any land, a fetch land. Mm-hmm. We know they had the fatal push, so I don't even know why we bothered there. Seven. Fantastic. Got a 3 damage stall. Kill me. one should do it. We do have to leave Vine Lasher in. Sorry, I mean Serum plays in. Because it looks like they're playing a very similar version to what Andrea played this week. Sure. Go. Mm-hmm. Pass. Back on that 6. That's kind of annoying. Mm-hmm. Hmm. This has got to be Wither Bloom Command with him, I guess. Or they could have brought in... just going to allow them to flip Soren. Alright, more power to him. Alright, quick wrap after 2 matches. Did kind of have to go back and re-record the Living End one, and then we played against Blackburn. So a couple things, you know, this domain list, we played it once before. I think it went 2-3, and, you know, I did mention that I did feel there was something possibly here. And it's really hard to, you know, when you run into matchups that are Living End, probably not the worst matchup anymore. It used to be kind of tricky when they could play at flash speed with Violent Outburst. Historically, when they were Jund deck, it was a good matchup. Now, I have no idea. I assume it's either 50-50 or maybe slightly in Burn's favor. Especially without Grief, you know, all the other nonsense. If you look at this list, you know, it is the domain list we ran several weeks back, and then adding Boltwave in place of the Eidolons and the Phlages. The Phlages were just terrible. You know, I tried that card a lot in Burn, and it just isn't good. You look at the rest of the deck, I mean, it's the same deck. We could have made the tweaks to the mana base that Nighthawk talked about, but I decided to run this one back since it's the one I was already kind of familiar with. Plus, I don't have to get, you know, new Trillian special arts here, so that was nice. The upside of this one, in terms of it over the Rakdos variant we have, is we do have 2 cards that can potentially be multiple cards. Basically, Tribal Flames and Boros Charm. They break up the rule of 3, basically. And then we're running Searing Blaze, so when we run into the matchups where this is a good card, you know, it's a pretty reasonable thing. The sideboard, you know, Thoughtseize is for the combo stuff, you know, whether it's Titan or Living End or Belcher, any of that kind of nonsense. Rakdos Charm has just been, it's never super impressive, but it's a reasonable modal card. It hits graveyards, it blows up artifacts, and in a pinch could potentially deal your opponent a bucket load of damage if they're, you know, playing a bunch of creatures. Not that there's a bunch of those in the format other than Boros at this point. Lane Line Binding pretty much answers everything we could possibly want. I will give our opponent credit. The Blackburn opponent, they did bait us into using double Leyline Binding on Taganti's Machinations and then land a Necrodominance. I was kind of surprised they left the Necrodominance in their deck, but then again, knowing how much the mono black deck, Blackburn deck could flail if it didn't draw action, I should have suspected that something was up, that they were deliberately running Machinations into situations where I wasn't going to be, or they weren't going to be able to gain life off of it. So I should have read it, and that was definitely well played by opponent / misplayed on my part. And then Eidolon, you know, I don't like the card in Burn. I just don't anymore. There's basically one matchup it's tied up for, and that is Storm. Storm, either Twiddle Storm or, you know, whatever flavor of Ruby Storm. or if somebody decides that they're going to bust out, is it Gift Storm for some reason. But this is about the only matchup that I truly wanted in. I mean, it's not great against Boros. Don't even think it's probably great against Murktide. So, takes up sideboard slots, and it's there for one matchup that we don't even see that much. So, I've only played 7 matches. 5 with Rakdos, 2 with this domain, all in friendly leagues, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. Boltwave is a good start. I think it improves Burn as a whole. The problem is Boltwave is just another bolt. It's not a Price of Progress. It's not a Fire Blast. It's not those style cards. The power level will probably be needed to move Burn, kicking and screaming back into a tier deck. At least traditional Burn. The black burn version might be an okay, kind of compromise. It's like in between the mono black necro decks that were first popping around when MH3 popped up, and in between Burn. But I tried mono black Burn a couple times before necro, and it was so bad. Like, it was certain situations where it was reasonable, but it was just such a bad deck. That said, one of its few great matchups was traditional Burn, just because it has so much life gain, whether it's Chancellor of the Dross, Soul Spike, Gonti's Machinations, Witherbloom Command, etc. So, living in, 50-50 matchup, mono black Burn, terrible matchup. So, kind of hard to draw a lot of conclusions from today's video, but was pretty sweet to see Tribal Flames pop off for some 5 shots. And Boltwave continues to be fun. No reason to consider why it wouldn't be part of Burn's normal rotation now. It's just better Lava Spike, and I don't ever hear anyone talking about removing Lava Spike. So, as always, if you like Burn content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hope to see you for our next video.